Dear students, today we are going to learn the lesson On to the Summit. We reach the top, written by Tenzing Norgay. The lesson is an article published in the Times of India. I think that you know Mount Everest is the highest peak on the earth. Tenzing Norgay and Edmund Hillary created history by reaching the summit of Mount Everest. They were the first two individuals who reached at the top of Mount Everest on May 29, 1953. In this lesson, Tenzing Norgay, the mountaineer, describes the historic climb in his own words. In this video lecture, you will learn new words from the lesson, information of some mountaineers mentioned in the text, and line to line explanation in English. Let's get started. New words from the lesson. Summit means peak or the highest point of a hill or mountain. Alternated means changing places. Anchor means a person who provides strong support in an uncertain situation. Capacity, here meaning a specified position. Expedition means a journey undertaken by a group of people with a particular purpose. Sloping means slanting up or down. Controversy means prolonged public disagreement. Pact means a formal agreement between individuals or parties. Ridge means a long, narrow piece of raised land. Embrace means to hug. Aloft means in the sky. In accord with means in agreement with. Quench means satisfy one's thirst. Exhilarated means very happy and excited. Gale means strong wind. Glacier means an extremely large mass of ice which moves very slowly, often down a mountain valley. Apparently means as far as one knows or one can see. Archives means documents kept for historical interest. In our lesson, there is reference of many mountaineers. See the list of mountaineers from the lesson. Tenzing Norgay, a Nepali Indian Sherpa mountaineer. He is the writer of this lesson. Edmund Hillary, a mountaineer from New Zealand. You know, Tenzing Norgay and Edmund Hillary were the first two individuals who reached at the top of Mount Everest. Colonel Hunt, leader of the successful Mount Everest expedition. C.W.F. Noyes, an English mountaineer and author. W.G. Lowe, a New Zealand born mountaineer and film director. Let's begin the text. Open your textbook, page number 16. In this lesson, the writer Tenzing Norgay describes the climb to the top and all events occurred during the historic climb. Now, see in your textbook. On to the summit, we reached the top. When we left Camp 9 on Friday morning, I was determined to get to the top on this day. That morning, I remember thinking I was to get to the top even if I die. I was not afraid to die that day. We set out early and all the way from Camp 9 to the peak we alternated. In the first paragraph, the writer Tenzing Norgay describes the historic day of climbing the Mount Everest. Here the pronoun We stands for the writer Tenzing Norgay and his colleague Edmund Hillary. On that Friday, they determined to get to the top at any cost. The writer was not afraid to die that day. They started the climb early in the morning from Camp 9 to the peak. I would take the lead, and then Hillary, the man who follows when climbing, has a difficult job both in climbing up and climbing down. He is the anchor. The man going in the lead cuts the steps and breaks the way. Sometime the writer would take the lead, and sometime his friend Hillary. The writer describes Hillary as the anchor. Hillary was the strong supporter to the writer. In my pocket, I had four flags. When we were still at Camp 4, Colonel Hunt gave me three flags, those of Britain, the United Nations, and Nepal. He charged me with the duty of planting them on the top of the world. Here the writer tells us that he had four flags in his pocket. At Camp 4, Colonel Hunt gave three flags of Britain, the United Nations, and Nepal. He had the duty of planting them on the top of the world. These three flags are in your care, he said. When you and Hillary reach the top, put them at the peak. I am sure that you and Hillary are going to do it. Colonel Hunt was confident that the writer and Hillary would reach at the top of Mount Everest. I told Colonel Hunt that I was carrying the Indian flag with me and I would like to be on the top with the other flags. I had to ask Colonel Hunt's permission in his capacity as leader of the expedition. The writer told Colonel Hunt that he was carrying the Indian flag with him. Colonel Hunt was the leader of the expedition. He gave the permission to plant the Indian flag on the top of the world. Indian flag. Colonel Hunt said, by all means, I am glad to know that you brought an Indian flag. After 1 hour of steady going, we cut across from the south face and started up the west side where we had to pass up a steep line of rocks. This was slow and difficult. Once we had cleared there was nothing barring our way to top but a snow covered incline, sloping less and less as it neared the top. Colonel Hunt expressed joy after knowing that the writer brought the Indian flag. The path was not hard except a snow covered incline. These last 60 or 70 feet up the top were not very dangerous, but we kept up the same steady pace and we reached the small, flattened summit almost together. The writer tells us that the last 60 or 70 feet up the top were not very dangerous, but they kept up the same speed of walking and they reached the small flat summit almost together. During the last 50 feet from the peak, Hillary and I were moving about 20 feet apart. We were tied together with a rope. Most of the time, the rope was loose, but when we went over dangerous ground, we drew it taut. This rope was a symbol. It tied us together. One could not move without the other. We were not two individuals, but a team. Here the writer tells us that while climbing up, they were tied together with a rope According to the writer, the rope was a symbol of togetherness. They were not two individuals, but they were a team. I have been asked many times who was first. When we were within reach of the summit, I did not think of who was going to be first. I am sure that Hillary was not thinking that. Climbing takes all your attention. You have many more important worries. One question was asked to the writer for many times. The question was, who was the first? The writer thinks that the question was not important at that time because they were facing a lot of worries at that time. What does it matter whether I reached the top first or Hillary? Our main thought was that both of us reached the top. We had to. One couldn't do it alone. According to Tenzing Norgay, it does not matter who reached the top first. Their target was to reach the top, and one could not do it alone. If there had been a difference of 1000 feet between us, then one could make the claim that he was first. But even then, only the man behind him could confirm the distance between the two of them. When we reached Kathmandu, we discovered that a controversy had arisen. We walked it, sorry, we talked it over. Hillary, Colonel Hunt, and I. We agreed that all the talk was childish. So we made a pact, and each of us signed it in the office of the Prime Minister of Nepal. Each one signed his own statement. I have a copy of Hillary's statement, which I carry in my pocket. When the team of the two mountaineers reached Kathmandu, they discovered that there was a controversy about the expedition. So, Edmund Hillary, Colonel Hunt, and the writer made a formal agreement, that is, they made a pact, and each one signed his own statement. It reads Kathmandu, June 22nd, 1953. On May 29th, Tenzing Sherpa and I left our high camp on Mount Everest for our attempt on the summit. As we climbed upwards to the south summit, first one and then the other would take a turn at leading. We crossed over the south summit and moved along the summit ridge. We reached the summit almost together. We embraced each other, overjoyed at our success. Then I took photograph of Tenzing holding aloft the flags of Great Britain, Nepal, the United Nations, and India. Signed E.P. Hillary. There is another paper like this in English, signed by me. Thus, we will not take part in any controversy. As the statement says, Hillary and I embraced when we reached the top. We did, as well as our bulky equipment would let us. I remember saying to him, we have done it. But we couldn't hear. We had our oxygen mask on. Now, in this way, by creating a pact, the writer and Hillary ended controversy about the expedition. First thought. My first thought on reaching the top was a sense of gratitude to God that after having failed 6 times, He had blessed me with fulfillment of this desire I had held so long. Now, here the writer describes first thought came in his mind at the top of Mount Everest. The writer expresses feeling of gratitude to God. Gratitude means thankfulness. His dream was fulfilled. I placed on the summit the offerings to God that I had carried with me. This is in accord with my religion. Both my wife and I are Buddhists. I could not kneel because of my clothes and equipment, but I offered a silent prayer in my heart. The offerings were biscuits, candy, and a little blue pencil. My youngest daughter, Nima, had given me the pencil before I left home. She asked me to put it on the top of the mountain as her offering. It was an ordinary blue pencil, not even a long one, but it was one of her prized possessions. The writer placed his offerings to God that he had carried with him. He offered a silent prayer in his heart. The author tells us that he and his wife both are Buddhists. And the writer describes offerings. The offerings were biscuits, candy, and a little blue pencil. The writer's younger daughter Nima had given him the pencil as her offering. As I put it down, I pointed it out to Hilary. He gave me a big smile, showing that he understood. Then I got out the flags, which I had on piece of string about 4 feet long. I fastened one end to my ice axe, and Hilary took pictures as I held it up. As I had to bring my ice axe down with me, I buried one end of the string in the ice on the top and the other in snow on the slope down below. When we left, they were lying flat against the summit. The writer got out the flags and fastened one end to his ice axe. Hilary took pictures. When they left, the flags were lying flat against the summit. I was very thirsty. I took out a water tumbler for a drink, but found the water in the metal container had frozen, so I couldn't quench my thirst. I ate some biscuits and offered some to Hilary. The writer was very thirsty, but he could not quench his thirst because the water in the tumbler had frozen. Tumbler means a drinking glass without handle. The writer ate some biscuits and offered some to his colleague Edmund Hillary. I was wearing a red scarf which my great friend Lombard, leader of the 1952 Swiss expedition, had given me last year. It was just a year ago on May 28th when we were standing at 22,215 feet that he gave me the scarf. I wore it all the way up the mountain from Darjeeling. As I stood at the top, I remembered him and felt that he was with me. I felt absolutely fit at the summit. My mind was absolutely clear. I didn't feel tired. I felt exhilarated. It was a very clear sensation. As the writer stood at the top of the mountain, he remembered his great friend Limbart, who had given him a red scarf in the last year. He felt absolutely fit and fine at the summit. He did not feel tired. He felt exhilarated. Exhilarated means very happy and excited. Below, all the hills and mountains looked like gods and goddesses to me. The plains below looked like so many broken pieces of the map. Below the Mount Everest, all the hills and mountains looked like gods and goddesses to the writer. The plains looked like broken pieces of the map. Two or three people could stand there on the roof of the world. If you cut ice 20 or 30 feet below the top, there was enough flat square for two people to sleep. You could pitch one tent there. The summit is flat on one side and steep on the other. There is snow on the northern side, rocks on the south and east, and snowy rock on the west. We stayed on the top a little more than 15 minutes. We were lucky that there was no gale, or it would have swept us off. My next thought was how to get down safely. In this paragraph, the writer describes the summit. They stayed there more than 15 minutes. They were lucky that there was no strong wind at that time. The next thought in the writer's mind was how to get down safely. On the descent from the summit, I was walking behind Hillary. I was following him and holding the rope tightly, and my determination was to make sure he descended safely. I must say that the climb down was more difficult and dangerous than the climb up. If you slipped down, you would go into Kangshung Glacier and there would be no trace left of you. While climbing down, the writer was walking behind Hillary. He was following Hillary and holding the rope tightly. The writer asserts that climbing down was more dangerous than climbing up. The author tells us that if someone slipped down, he or she would go into Kangshung Glacier and there would be no trace left of the person. More caution needed. Of course, it took less time climbing down, but we needed more Hoshiar. Hoshiar, that is caution. When I reached Camp 9, my first thought was, thank God, we have been spared an accident. And if up to now there have been no accidents, I hope there will be none in future. I had always prayed to God and he had saved me. Though the journey was dangerous, the climbing down took less time. When they reached at the Camp 9, the writer expressed gratitude to God. At Camp 9, Hillary and I were in no mood for any talking. We just attended to our own things. We stayed there about half an hour. We boiled some snow to make lemon water and drank it. When we left, we took only our sleeping bags and left everything else behind in the tent. From Camp 9 to Camp 8, where we spent the night, was an easier job. Just above Camp 8, where the others could see us, I raised my arm with my thumb up. CWF noise and WG Loy swas and their faces flushed with joy. In this way, I was able to tell them of our success. As we got nearer to the Camp 8, Lowe came to meet us and came up about 300 feet with tea and coffee. At the Camp 9, the writer and Edmund Hillary stayed about half an hour. They boiled some snow to make lemon water and drank it. From Camp 9 to Camp 8, they spent the night. Just above Camp 8, CWF Noise and WG Lowe saw them and became very happy. Lowe came to meet them about 300 feet with tea and coffee for these two mountaineers. Another 50 feet down, we met Noise, who brought us more tea. This tea smelled kerosene. Apparently, it had been made in a hurry, and somehow some kerosene got into the welcome cup. But I thought, since the gentleman had taken so much trouble to bring it, I was going to enjoy it whatever the smell. Tenzing Norgay. Another 50 feet down, noise brought more tea for them. The tea smelled kerosene. The writer understood the feelings of noise and enjoyed the welcome cup of tea. This article was published in the Times of India. In this lesson, we understand the memorable journey of Tenzing Norgay and Edmund Hillary. We also come to know the challenges in mountaineering and the life of mountaineers. Dear students, once again read the lesson and do the brainstorming activities given in the textbook. For more videos, subscribe my YouTube channel. Thank you for watching. Have a nice day.